Today, violent crime is the lowest it's been in over 50 years. So why are parents nationwide so fearful to allow their children basic freedoms, such as walking to and from school? My guest today is an advocate and spokesperson for the free-range parenting movement. She's the author of the book, blog, and Twitter feed Free Range Kids and host of the Discovery Channel TLC reality show World's Worst Mom. Lenore Skenazy joins me today on Off the Grid to explain her method of raising safe, self-reliant children without going nuts with worry. Lenore, welcome to Off the Grid first and foremost, and let's explain to those who don't know, what is free-range parenting, Lenore?
Oh, first of all, thank you, Governor, for having me here. Free-range parenting is something that most of your viewers are probably familiar with it because it was the way they were probably raised. Free-range parents just don't believe that their children are in constant danger from everything they see, do, eat, meet, encounter, read, or just have in their lives at any moment. Our kids are not in constant danger. That's our whole motto.
I was called a latchkey kid, two working parents, and I had to accept the responsibility of getting myself to and from school every day because my mom and dad were already gone to work in the morning, and when I'd get home, it had its advantage because if I'd get home quick, change clothes fast, I could be right back in the schoolyard and knew I didn't have to get home till 6 o'clock for dinner. So would I be a free-range kid?
I'd say you were the quintessential free-range kid. But I think what you're saying will resonate for a lot of parents today because that's how they were raised. Even if their parents were at home when they got home, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but when I came home, first of all, I walked myself to school. The crossing guard who crossed me was another kid. You didn't have to have an adult there. We trusted the 10-year-olds to get the little children across the street. And then when I came home, sure, my mom was there for my cookies and milk, but then I, like you, would go outside. You probably played basketball or baseball and I was playing Barbies, but we both went outside and our parents didn't feel like they had to be with us every single second of the day to make sure we were safe. And that gave us two, I'd say, big advantages over today's kids. One is that we learned how to take care of ourselves. If we got into a fight with our friend while we were playing, we had to solve it ourselves. If we were bored, we had to get out of boredom and come up with something to do. But the other advantage, the one that I think I heard even in your voice as you were describing your parents, is not only were you proud of them for serving their country and having the jobs and raising their family in the right way, but you could tell that they trusted you. Right? They didn't think they had to have some neighborhood kid come and watch over you every day after school because you were so slow or so dumb or so irresponsible that you couldn't take care of yourself. They trusted you, which meant that you had this wind under your wings of your parents believing in you. And when we do everything with our kids today and for them and drive them everywhere and watch every single practice that they're at and help them unwrap their sandwich and cut up their food for them, you know, ad nauseum, the message that the kids today get is that, yeah, my parents love me a lot, but they don't trust me to do anything. They don't even trust me to do the things they did when they were my age. And I hear that when I go and speak at schools. And I've heard from parents complaining because schools won't let their children play outside during recess if there's any snow on the ground. Or if there is snow on the ground, the blacktop gets cleared of it and the children aren't allowed to go in the snow. Or the children who are allowed to go in the snow at some other schools aren't allowed to make anything with it lest they throw a snowball. And speaking of snowball, that's what's happening. This fear for our children just keeps snowballing. Oh, they'll slip. Oh, they'll fall. Oh, they'll hurt each other. Oh, they'll be mean to each other. They'll be bullies. And pretty soon, parents and adults are supervising every second of their day, and they never get to develop exactly what I'm hearing in your voice, which is this pride, this swagger that you got yourself to school in Minnesota winters 13 years without a car. I mean, that's an accomplishment. And what we keep taking out of our kids' lives are almost the very same experiences that we all love to talk about now that we're adults because they made us feel proud and grown up and trusted and responsible. So free-range kids just says, whoa, why are the things that mattered so so much to you the things you are taking out of your own kid's life because you think your kids aren't safe enough. As you were saying in your introduction to me, crime is at a 50-year low. So any parents growing up, any of today's parents grew up when crime was higher than it is now. But we're acting like it's off the charts, and we're treating our kids like they're teacups who have to be, inside behind that glass break front in the dining room instead of real kids out there having fun like you did, fishing, walking, going.
Now, how did you become to national attention as America's worst mom?
Well, it was in 2008 already, so a while ago, when my younger son was 9 years old. He had started asking my husband and me if we would take him someplace he hadn't been before here in New York City, where we live, and let him find his own way home on the subway. And so one sunny Sunday, I took my son to Bloomingdale's, which is not far from where I am right now. Very fancy department store in a beautiful zip code. And it was a Sunday, and I guess all the criminals are off on Sunday. For some reason, it seemed even more safe because it was a weekend. And I said, okay, hon, today's the day, goodbye. And I left him in the handbag department at Bloomingdale's, and I went one way, and he had to take the subway down, and he had to figure out which direction, which track to go on. And then he had to get out by himself and take another bus across town. We lived across town. And when he came through the door that afternoon, he was 3 inches taller. He was so proud. It's the same pride I hear when you're talking about walking to school in the snow or being allowed to go and fish with your buddies on the weekends when you were just a kid or a teenager. He felt that too. His parents trusted him. He'd done something grown up. And I didn't write about it immediately, even though I'm a newspaper columnist by trade, because it wasn't a publicity stunt. It wasn't a big deal. It was just part of his growing up. But then eventually I did write about it, right?
Let me ask you this. How scared were you that day? What were your feelings that day that you decided to do this experiment and allow your child in New York? Because, New York can be a scary place for people.
Especially if you're not from here.
How actual scared were you that day?
Well, this is a question I get asked a lot, and it's hard for me to remember exactly because it was 2008. But if I was scared for my son, I wouldn't have let him do it because I actually am a nervous mom. I mean, nobody believes that, but I am. I believe in helmets, car seats, seat belts. If you have a baby shower and I bring a gift, which I do if you have a baby shower, the gift I always bring is a fire extinguisher. So I believe in safety. And so if I had thought that this was something unsafe, anything dangerous or iffy, I wouldn't have let him do it at all. I certainly wouldn't have let him do it at night or in a neighborhood I wasn't familiar with.
How old was he,
People wish I
Lenore?
was nervous, but I wasn't particularly nervous that day. He was 9. He was 9 years old.
He was nine years old that day, so he hadn't even reached double digits yet.
No.
He was 9 years
He
old.
was close to 10. But that's
Sure.
the point. He grew up in New York City, just like I would feel very nervous having him walk through a snowstorm to a middle school in the middle of Minnesota, because I'm not familiar with that. My son was growing up in New York City, where from babyhood he was always on the subways. He was very familiar with public transportation, slightly obsessed by public transportation, and that's why he asked if he could do it. He could read a map, he could speak the language. What I gradually realized over the years of writing about, why did we get so scared for our kids and how come we can't give them the childhoods we have, is that my crime in the eyes of the media wasn't letting him ride the subway by himself. My crime was that when I'm on most other shows, you haven't asked this question, but most people ask, how would I have felt if he hadn't come home? And since we all know how I would have felt if he didn't come home, it isn't really a question. That's the accusation that's made of me. If you're a good parent today, you're supposed to be imagining something tragic happening to your child, no matter what you let them do, eat, see, wear, go to, visit, be.
That's the fear thing we're talking about. We're being
thing.
pumped full of fear. Now, is the media to blame for this, or is it marketing? Are they marketing fear to us, or is it media originated?
Well, the media is the marketplace. As somebody once wrote to me, the news is not there to inform you. The news is there to make money. The news makes money by keeping people glued to the screen. How do you get people to keep watching your television, especially if it's 24/7, which is not what our parents had to watch when they were raising us? I think that's what made them feel less anxious than today's parents. Today, with this 24/7 news cycle, you get very nervous because the story that they put on the most, that they know will grab the most viewers and keep them there, is the story of a child that something tragic I have to put it that way, something really tragic happened to them. And so if you keep turning on the TV, this shows you how old I am, Jesse. If you turn on your TV, you will see, a couple channels in, a story about something awful that happened to a kid, whether you're watching the news or it's 10 years since this tragedy or it's Law and Order or it's one of the other crime shows. There's always something scary on TV happening to kids because that keeps us glued. But the marketplace is also aware that if they can make us nervous, worried about any aspect of our kids' life, they can sell us something to relax us. And so now there's actually a product they're selling for babies. When you bring home your healthy baby, you put her in the crib, she's gone to sleep, you quietly sneak on this little sock onto her foot, and it's an electronic sock, and it measures his or her heartbeat, blood pressure, movement, temperature, and blood oxygen level. Okay, this comes all to your phone, your iPhone or your Android. Out comes a measurement, and that's the kind of stuff that you would normally want a readout of if your child was in neonatal intensive care. But this is marketed to regular parents as just a way to be safe, and don't you want to know how your child is doing, and what if their chest is going up and down but they're not getting enough oxygen? So what the marketer has done is planted in your brain this fear that your child, who is healthy, who is at home, who is asleep in the crib, even she is not safe enough. You better buy something to make sure that she's not going to die from second to second to second to second to second. And that's the kind of fear that is pushed on us parents on a daily basis. Everything is too dangerous. What if she eats a non-organic grape? Forget it. All bets are off.
Has this excessive fear actually seeped into our lawmaking?
Yeah. I mean, if you start thinking that kids are in danger anytime they're not supervised by an adult, then anytime they're not supervised by an adult, why isn't the adult there? And to a certain extent, this is reflected in our laws. Your viewers have probably heard of this case that came out of Silver Spring, Maryland last year. Maybe it was earlier this year. The Métis family, they let their children ages 10 and 6 walk home from their local park, and the kids were picked up by the police, driven home. The father was chastised. He was made to sign a form that says, I will not let my children out of my sight, and before he could be guaranteed that the children could still stay with him. And then it happened again, that the children once again were walking home from a park a couple months later after the first charge had been cleared, and the children were picked up and taken to an emergency shelter as if they had been abused by their parents simply because their parents let them walk home from their local park. 10 and 6, 10 years old, the same age that you were walking to your Minnesota school, both ways uphill, the same age that my crossing guard was when he was trusted by a school to cross the little children back when I was growing up. But suddenly now, the fact that the parents weren't next to these children when they were walking in their peaceful suburb meant that the parents were neglectful, and the parents had to fight the charges. Eventually they were dropped. But this has happened across the country.
So they actually charged parents with a crime for allowing their children to walk home from the park without adult supervision.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear an even more appalling case, one family that wrote to me, because parents write to me all the time if they're arrested. One guy last week, Navy SEAL. He's about to start his training as a Navy SEAL. He had his baby in the car. He went in to get a smoothie. So he parked in front of the smoothie place. There's a plate glass window. He can see his car. He's getting his smoothie. People start gathering around the car because there's a child in it. He comes out with his smoothie. 2 minutes later, he says, that's my baby. And they're taking pictures of his license plate. You endangered that child. That child could have died. He's like, there's no way that child could have died. I didn't forget her. I'm right here. I'm watching her. It's a safe neighborhood. What kind of fantasies do we have that make people really believe that a child is in danger 2 minutes waiting in a car with the father right there? But in 19 states now, there are laws against letting your child wait in the car even for a short amount of time. And I understand if you let your child wait in the car for a long time, very bad things can happen. The car can heat up. But if it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes and you're running an errand, you're getting the ibuprofen and bringing it back to the sick kid while they sleep in the car, that is not a crime. But in our hyperventilating society that sees all children as in danger the second you take your eyes off them, it has become a crime. And that's why I'm trying to get like a Bill of Rights passed for parents and kids that simply says children have the right to some unsupervised time, like the kind you had when you were coming home from school, and parents have the right to give them some unsupervised time while they run in to get the smoothie, while they run an errand, while the kid walks home by themselves, without getting arrested. It's the unsupervised time. Kids deserve it. We deserve to be able to give it to them.
My parents are both gone now, but I thank my parents for how they raised me. They raised me to be an independent thinker, to be able to take care of myself, and nothing bad ever happened to me throughout my entire time that I grew up as a kid. And I thank my parents for the freedom they allowed me to have and the responsibility they allowed me to undertake, because it helped create who I am today, good or bad.
Well, it seems pretty good. And you know, there's no way that you or I or the Free Range Kids movement can guarantee that nothing bad will ever happen, but we're almost to the point where parents think you must guarantee that nothing bad will ever happen to my kids before I let them do anything. And that's not something that our parents demanded, and it's not something that anybody can grant. Your kids could fall down the stairs at home. So you can't wait for perfection to trust your kids the way your parents trusted you. These are the things that make us who we are. They're the foundations of this confident, almost cocky person and competent person that you become. And to take these out of our kids' lives because what if he hurts himself is such a... It's so imposed on us by this crazy society, because we all know in our hearts that that's what made us who we are, and that's a gift you can give your kids. So why take it away instead of giving it to them? And the way you give it to them is by raising a free-range kid, letting them have some adventures on their own, trusting them, trusting society, and trusting that you're a good enough parent, that you're raising a kid who can take care of himself. I love your story.
Thank you. Now, you call, I see the terminology here, helicopter parents. Define that for me.
Yeah. Well, helicopter parent, I made up the term free-range kids, but I didn't make up the term helicopter parenting. That predates my movement. But it's the idea of parents that are helicoptering over their kids, ready to swoop in,
hovering,
come down and, handle any difficulty that they might be encountering, whether it's academic or social or physical, and then they'll go back up, but they'll always be above, watching to make sure that their kids are okay. And once again, the message that the kids get is that mom loves me, but she doesn't trust me to do anything. And it's not the parents that I blame. People think I'm down on helicopter parents. I'm down on a society that has parenting magazines. Like, let me tell you one story. One of the parenting magazines did an article on the Playdate Playbook. Playdates are what they call hanging out with kids hanging out together. Now, they all have to be arranged by the parents. And one question to the parenting magazine was, my kid is old enough to stay home by herself for a little while now. If she has a friend over, can I leave them alone while I go get the dry cleaning? And the answer was no, 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 you can't. Because what if the two have a squabble? You have to be there to mitigate it. You have to be there to help them get over their squabble. And it's like, how little confidence do you have in human nature to think that two kids who start arguing about, it was my turn, that was my turn, that was my turn, it was my turn, can't figure it out on their own? They can. And then the article went on and said, and what if something bad happens? And it told the story of a girl who was using her friend's microwave and accidentally spilled some macaroni and cheese on her skin and got a burn. So our society is obsessed with the tiny % chance that something bad could go wrong and how catastrophic this would be. When we just saw from your own story that, yes, once in a while things do go wrong, and that's when you get to prove who you are. And as an adult, you look back and you say, I'm the kid who could, as opposed to, I'm the kid whose mom helped me.
Exactly. Lenore, I got to tell you, we're running out of time here. It's been a joy to talk to you because
fantastic talking to you, too. Yeah.
I think I fit right in, and I don't think I did too bad with the parents I had. But like I said, they gave me responsibility. I understood that. Did I screw up? Of course I did at times. But they also they also had a big razor strap. I remember when Adrian Peterson, the Viking running back, got in so much trouble. I said, boy, they'd have put my mom in jail. Because I said she used to hit me with a razor strap when I was little.
I can tell you, most of our parents would be in jail for doing the things that we all know were just fine, like letting us wait in the car for a few minutes while they ran an errand, or letting us wait at home after school. It's this belief that our kids are in constant danger, that has blanketed the country and made us forget how competent children can be, and that the job of children is to screw up and is to mature as opposed to having everything done for them.
Very good, Lenore. Great note to finish on. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Keep the fight up. You've got me as a total supporter. Keep it up.
Oh, I'm going to say that. I'm going to put that on my blog. Okay, thank you so much, Governor.
All right, thank you, Lenore. You can find more tools to the free-range parenting movement online at her website, freerangekids.com. Leave your comments on my Facebook and Twitter or by going to aura.tv/offthegrid. And until next time, stay vigilant and let your kids do something.